Welcome to 2021. I am so excited that you are here. This is my first video of the new year, and it's an important time of the year at Strength Running because every year I announce a new theme, and this theme helps direct all the content that I produce, both here on YouTube, of course, but also on the Strength Running site and on the Strength Running podcast, and it gives us something to focus on. And this year is the year of taking action. I know a lot of runners know what to do, but very often we don't actually follow through on what we know we should do to become better runners. And so this month I'm going to be producing more content than ever, designed to help you take action on the fundamental principles that are going to make you into a better runner, a faster runner, someone who can run further, someone who's not getting injured so frequently, someone who has a better mental relationship with the sport. And so I couldn't think of a better way to start off this content push than by talking about our long-term relationship with the sport. And I want to talk about long-term mental toughness today. And mental toughness is often thought of as, this chest-beating, pseudo-macho kind of a mentality, but it's not that at all. Mental toughness is really the ability to proactively solve problems when you're in high-stress situations. And when we talk about long-term mental toughness, then we're getting a little bit away from that definition. That definition is when, you're in mile 3 of a 5K and you need some mental toughness to stay tough, to really kick hard and finish that race strong. Or at the end of a marathon. I think anyone who's run a marathon knows that at the very end, you need every ounce of mental toughness that you can get. But long-term mental toughness is very different. So I want to go through some examples of long-term mental toughness and then talk about some actionable ways that you can work on this skill continuously over the long term so that you can become that mentally tough runner that I think you can be. Let's talk about 3 great examples of long-term mental toughness. Scenarios where you really need to stay the course and be mentally tough, not for a moment, not for 10 minutes or 45 minutes, but for weeks or months or maybe even years. I think a great example is when runners get injured, and how they treat their injury is indicative of how much mental toughness that they have. So for example, if you get hurt and then all of a sudden give up on your training, you don't get your injury diagnosed, you don't start aggressively treating your injury, I would say this is an example of having low mental toughness. But that runner who aggressively treats their injury, they don't wallow in, despair because they got hurt, but instead they're actively trying to solve the problem. They stick with a treatment approach, even if it takes weeks or maybe a month or 2, and they're consistent with that approach. Now contrast that with the person who simply takes a week off and hopes for the best, or the person who just thinks to themselves, this running thing is not for me. So if you're someone who gets injured frequently, then a very good mental toughness goal for you is to apply these principles not just to your training and your running when you're healthy, of course that's a great idea, but also to the time when you're injured, because then you will come back stronger, you will come back sooner, and ultimately I think you'll be a better runner for it. Another fantastic example of long-term mental toughness is the mental toughness that it takes to continuously train at a high level. Now, high level is relative based on what you are comfortable with, what you are capable of. But just imagine every season, every 12 to 20 week block of time, you are gradually running a little bit more mileage, being more consistent with your long runs, running longer workouts or more frequent workouts or faster workouts. There are so many things that you can progress in your training. And if you want your race times to progress, you first need to progress in your training. And it takes a certain mindset, a certain amount of mental toughness to progress with your training season after season after season after season. Because soon you have to do some things that really scare you, like running 20 miles almost every weekend for your long run, or maybe running 60 miles a week for your weekly mileage, or maybe start doing 2 faster workouts a week rather than 1. Whatever it is, whatever the next logical step is that you take in your training, It takes a certain amount of confidence. It takes a certain amount of mental fitness to believe that you can do these things, to believe that they are the next step for you, and then to execute on it. Finally, a great example of mental toughness in the long term is the ability to focus on process. Not just today, not just this week, but this season, and then the season after it, and the season after it. Now, a lot of people chase external results. They just want to get in the 10 miles for the day. They don't necessarily make sure that they negative split the run because they started it nice and easy. They don't do the dynamic warm-up beforehand. They don't do any kind of mobility, strength, or core work after the run. And so they're focused on the sexy number that's going to pop up in Strava or that they're going to put in their training log rather than on the process of training. And it can be really hard to do that day in and day out because it really is a focus on perfection. Not necessarily perfect runs or perfect workouts, but attempting the process as perfectly as you can. Not skipping any corners. You're not going to, skip anything that you actually have to do. You are going to be on top of all the little things in your training. And that also includes lifestyle issues. You're going to try to keep your stress low. You're going to get as much sleep as you can. And you're going to find time to relax, to unwind, to connect with other people so that you have the energy in the emotional space to train really hard. It's difficult to do this long term, but those runners who can really prioritize their running, really focus on the process, will definitely reap the rewards for that. This form of mental toughness is a steady hand over time. It's a commitment to the fundamentals of the sport. And in other words, it's basically you recognizing that running is a long-term lifestyle. It's not a one-year fad where you're gonna see what you can do over a couple months and then give up. It's not something where, if you really care about running, you're gonna take the winter off every year. It is a lifestyle. And that form of mental toughness will carry you so far in the sport because the sport of running is a long-term sport. You are rewarded the longer you stick with it, the more progress you are going to experience and the better runner you'll become. So this all leads us to the question, now what? What do we do with this information now that we know, okay, this idea of long-term mental toughness, it's a steady hand over time, it's a commitment to the process. How do we actually accomplish this? Well, I think there's the short-term answer and the long-term answer. The short-term answer is follow a good training plan because number one, a training plan is actually going to lay out the process for you. It's going to tell you how far to run, how slow to run, or how fast to run, and all you have to do is follow the directions. I think for any runner who maybe doesn't fully understand the training process or hasn't read a bunch of running books constantly, then this is a great option for you. Just get a plan from an organization or a coach that you trust, follow that plan, and you know that you are doing the right thing. Now, the long-term answer is let's do this over and over and over and over again. It is to make training a habit that you just can't imagine abandoning. Like, I can't imagine not brushing my teeth before I go to sleep. That idea is so foreign to me, it would make me feel disgusting. Unless I fall asleep on the couch watching TV before bed, I am definitely going to be brushing my teeth before I get into bed and fall asleep. We have to do the same thing with our training. We have to make the process of training so ingrained in our psychology that it becomes very difficult to extricate ourselves from it. We are going to want to do the right thing. And so a great example is the sandwiching concept that I have at Strength Running, where we are going to sandwich your run between a dynamic warm-up at the beginning and then some runner-specific strength and core at the end. It's just a simple framework for understanding that what you do for exercise is not just a run. You have to warm up for it, you have to cool down from it, and we should work on mobility and strength as well. Now, for anybody who's really gotten involved with this concept and for a couple months sandwich their runs with a warm-up and then some core and strength work, I'm sure it sort of got a little difficult to get away from that, especially the warm-up, because you understand immediately how much that warm-up makes you feel. You understand how good it makes you feel. As soon as you start that run, you're not as creaky, you're more warmed up, you are primed to go running. And that's what we want to do with your training. All of those little things in your training, if you can stick with it for an entire training season, it is much more likely that you are going to stick with it long term. So if you can make training a habit, if you can make it something that is just part of your routine that you are not going to ever get away from or abandon, then you will always be focusing on the process. You will always be thinking long term, and you'll be demonstrating some phenomenal long-term mental toughness. So I hope this video gave you some new ways to think about long-term planning and your mental relationship with the sport. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, this month at Strength Running, we are celebrating the year of taking action. I am going to be releasing more content here on our YouTube channel, so please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. And I'll also be releasing podcast episodes to the Strength Running podcast. So if you're not subscribed there, I would love to see you, and get ready for an amazing month. We're gonna have a lot of fun.